everyone, and welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. We've got a very special episode in store for you today, as you've maybe already seen by the title. And I'm joined in the intro with my lovely Lecky. Lecky Marique, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm not James Phoon, in case you thought she was going to introduce James Phoon there.
No.
I am not James Phoon. Apologies.
You're the warm-up act, Lecky.
Yes, I'm the warm-up act. Yes, that's me.
Well, how are you, Leck? We're in full autumn swing. It's your time of year.
I'm pretty good. It's been crazy busy for all of us lately, but yeah.
You'll hear from Veg later on in the episode. Beans can't be with us, but she's out there. She's all good.
And she is thrilled.
Yeah, this is the thing. You might think, where is Beans in this episode? She is very happy. She couldn't be in the episode, but she's thrilled.
Just imagine her screaming along. We were all so excited when James agreed to speak with us, and we're so grateful. And I don't know, I think you'll enjoy it.
So first of all, though, Lecky, before we do jump into a certain little conversation, do you happen to have any crumbs for us this week?
Yes.
Okay, Lecky, what have you got for us?
Well, we will kick things off with a bit of a spoiler warning, so skip ahead a minute or so, and we will also include a really helpful spoiler sound effect from Beans if you want to avoid season 4 spoilers.
So she is in the episode.
She is in the episode.
Look at that. Whack her in there.
Spoiler alert.
Thanks, Beans. So Bridgerton was busy filming at Ranger's house, aka the Bridgerton house exterior, a week or two ago. From filming leaks that emerged, it appears as though they were busy filming exterior shots for the masquerade ball, including Benedict's hurried arrival on horseback as he is seemingly running late for Violet's ball. He was, of course, in his Zorro or El Nombre, pick your poison, costume, possibly complete with a lovely cape or jacket. As ever, it's hard to tell. We do have some commentary about this jacket because when I originally saw these leaks, I thought it was like a shorter jacket. But no, it is the same floor-length jacket that he's wearing when he rides up on his horse.
Just in time for Halloween as well. Perfect.
Oh, I've also seen some people speculate that in the older leaks of Luke and Yaren back at Ham House, that the jacket she had wrapped around her waist might have been...
Same cape.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
It would be sweet, but it might not be.
It would be sweet, but I think it's maybe just something they wrapped around the bottom of her dress to protect the bottom from dragging along like the pebbled walkway they were on or something. But I could be wrong.
Spoilers.
In more season 4 news, Yaren Ha was interviewed by the Sydney Morning Herald, during which she shared the whirlwind audition process for the role of Sophie, in which she returned an audition tape within 24 hours of the call, and she was cast just 2 weeks later before being flown out to begin production in London. Yaren said, "I try not to look too much, but it seems like the overall response has been really positive. Now I'm just like, all right, let me do a good job shooting this show. I just want to do a really good job." I'm sure she will. It seems like James was also cast really fast for this too, but 24 hours is crazy. The turnaround time there.
When you know, you know.
Yeah. Luke Newton also delighted fans by seemingly confirming he is on set, busy filming for the season with an Instagram story titled Somewhere in Mayfair. We have another sweet season 4 Polin update coming just in a minute, but it's so exciting to know that the cast and crew are all hard at work on season 4. This month, Nicola was honored by Time magazine as an honoree of the Time 100 Next list, recognizing the most influential leaders of the future. Shonda Rhimes penned Nicola's feature, writing, "Nicola Coughlan may be best known for her stellar portrayal of the sharp-witted Lady Whistledown, but in real life she is so much more. She is her own diamond of every season who lights up every room she enters. She is a warm, engaging, and thoughtful person who fights for causes she believes in and displays a generosity of spirit to everyone she meets." Very sweet words from Shonda there. And on the day we are recording these crumbs, Time magazine has just published an interview with Nicola, which we will also link in our show notes. At the Time 100 Gala to celebrate this year's honorees, Nicola shared her excitement for season 4, saying it's going to be amazing. Luke and Yaren are hard at work now. They're having such a good time. And Polin fans, Nicola said of our much-loved duo, they get to come back and just be in love and have the best time together. It's very fun to be playing a happily married person with a very cute baby. It feels like they went through all their strife last time.
Thank the Lord. And I think that Time interview only just dropped as we're recording, but I think she also mentioned their crazy cute baby and more Polin intimate scenes to look forward to. Lecky, can you believe Polin season 4?
Yes, I'm all here for happy Polin. Cannot wait to see them in marital bliss.
Getting into little hilarious escapades, gossiping away. having the time of their lives.
We're here for it. Nicola also shared her thoughts on Francesca and Michaela's stories, saying, I know as a cast we've been really craving a queer storyline, and that representation is so important. I just know that it's going to be done so well by Hannah and Masali. They're going to do an incredible job. Whenever their time comes, they're going to be ready, and they're going to knock it out of the park. I love Bridgerton because it's a show that tells all different types of love stories, so everyone should feel represented in it.
Hear, hear.
In more cast news, Simone Ashley was honored by Glamour's Women of the Year for Game-Changing Actor. In a very sweet moment, Nicola Coughlan was the one to present the award to Simone at the Women of the Year Awards. To mark Simone's achievement, Glamour also published an in-depth interview with Simone Ashley. I'd highly recommend going and reading the feature in full. We will make sure to link it in our show notes, because Simone offered really powerful insights into her career, her work ethic, and the importance of Southeast Asian representation in the industry. Simone also confirmed that she will be returning for season 4, saying, I know I am returning, but that's all I can say. I absolutely adore the show, and the more I can be part of it, the better. They've been really kind to work around my schedule. Listeners, you might remember that Kate's role in season 4 was thrown into question a few weeks ago when Simone's name was not included in a list of returning cast. However, we are so thrilled to hear she will be returning, and we'll see Cantony back on our screens. Give it a year or two, it will be great.
Kate is back. Hallelujah.
Footman John fans, you can also rejoice as Ollie Higginson will be returning for season 4 as well.
Yay.
We know this because we saw a little crack of him in the doorway in the leaks that emerged a few weeks ago. But fingers crossed, Footman John gets a raise this season as he enters yet another year of Bridgerton family chaos.
Long live Footman John.
And if you are in the market for random objects and set decor, we're sure you've already heard that Netflix has partnered with the UK mental health charity Mind in hosting 2 pop-up shops with an online auction selling props and costumes from its biggest shows, including Bridgerton. The London pop-up shop took place last weekend. Ovs, I believe, went.
I did.
We'll come back to that in a second. But the Birmingham pop-up will be taking place this weekend on the 19th of October. Bridgerton is also featured as part of the online auction where you can bid right now on a lot of Whistledown papers and a hairpiece from the show.
Yeah, and they had these at the pop-up on display. I thought it was so interesting because you could kind of see a little bit more of the papers than you normally do. And do you know in season 2 when Penelope shifts gears with Whistledown to sort of appeal towards Eloise?
Yes.
It's when she questions the practice of naming the diamond.
Uh-huh.
And we have the scene where Eloise is reading it and she's so pleased. Well, you could see pretty much the whole of the front cover. And it's actually really radical, the rest of what Whistledown writes. And I thought that was so interesting to see. So she has a section called The Privilege of Having a Choice, where she writes, so what did men do to deserve the privilege of being the one in charge of making a choice? They take the jobs that could be performed by women to an equal extent and then hold us to ransom to the situation in which we cannot make our own living. Why does a woman not have a say in it? Why are men always the ones to make the choice? While there is no shame in enjoying the perks of being the lady of the house, performing the duties of the wife and the mother, it is lack of choice that this author means to criticise. And then she has a call to action where she asks about how they can bring about positive change in society. It's really interesting.
I was going to say, yeah, she's so much playing to Eloise there. That's hilarious. Very interesting.
It does remind me in some ways about the choice that Penn has in 306, where she does want both and she can have both. So I thought that was really cool. And yes, I did go to the pop-up shop.
Yeah, she was there with Veg for I don't know how long.
Half an hour.
But Obs was in line for several hours and Veg waited long enough and decided to give up. But Obs powered through. She made it into the pop-up shop. There was some controversy because they were running out of things and just giving people popcorn. At one point, they placed Obs in an entirely separate line for reasons she doesn't know. But you did come away victorious with what?
Bit of ASMR fuel. I have got 4, just by chance it was 4, there's 4 of us, 4 glasses from the show. There was a moment where I thought there was no Bridgerton items and I was going to get something from Queen Charlotte. I don't know what that thing was.
I don't know either.
It looked like a candle holder. I don't know what it was.
I thought maybe an incense holder, but it couldn't be because we figured out it was upside down. But
then I heard whispers of Bridgerton glasses. And by glasses, I mean like drinking glasses. But there you go, Lecky. I'll send this to America. Are you thrilled?
Yes, I would be the proud owner of a Bridgerton glass.
Listeners, place your bets on whether this makes it to America intact. And a little secret for you. So these are like the glasses I think are in like the back of scenes. We haven't actually found them in the show. We haven't looked.
Yeah, we're going to have to do some digging.
We'll do some digging.
To be honest, yeah.
But a little secret for you because they came in the box that they were purchased in. So obviously they were bulk bought in by the set designers. Bobbed out, bobbed back in the boxes. America, these are from Williams-Sonoma. So it's like, if you want to get the same glasses that they have used on the show, Lecky, I can't access the page. What are they called?
They are called Vintage Etched Tumblers. And this is the shade Clear.
Is that the shade? Yes, it's a clear glass.
There's also a pink, if you prefer pink.
Oh, I would have loved pink. You know I love pink. But there you go, Lecky. Or do you want the Netflix and chili flavoured popcorn?
I do not. That's not, I wouldn't eat that.
But it's such a great cause. The auction's still going on. If you live near Birmingham, head over to Birmingham. I think maybe on the day that this episode is released, so maybe not helpful.
Yes, the pop-up in Birmingham is on the 19th. So we hope you are power walking there, our listeners in England.
And if you're in line waiting for hours, I hope we're keeping you company.
Yeah, yep.
Perfect. Lecky, what else is going on?
Voting is now open for the 2025 TV Choice Awards long list. Bridgerton, Luke Newton, and Nicola Coughlan are all eligible, so go show your support and vote. Luke and Nicola are both eligible for Best Drama Performance, along with Lorraine Ashburn, actually.
Ollie!
Although she's not nominated for Bridgerton, she's nominated for Sherwood. Nicola is also nominated in the comedy category for her work on Big Mood, so please go vote for your favorite Bridgertons.
I also think the traitors is up, so you can place your vote, Lecky.
I actually already placed my vote. I used a VPN, but I don't know if I should admit this, but I used a VPN and I voted. Sorry.
The TV Choice Awards have been fixed.
Sue me, or don't.
Please don't sue us.
In more cast news, congratulations are in order for Lorne MacDonald, who has been nominated by BAFTA Scotland for his performance in The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Season 3 cinematographer Diana Oliferova will have her work featured in an upcoming exhibition, One Nation Under a Groove, at the Bomb Factory Art Foundation in London throughout October. And last but definitely not least, Sam Phillips and Joe Barnes, the duo behind Mum, I'm in a Movie, and also are Lord Debling and Lord Wilding, have just released another sketch, this time featuring Fight Club. As ever, their sketches are very funny, so please go follow them on Instagram and YouTube.
Well, Lecky.
Jesus.
What a crummy old time it is.
Yeah. What a whirlwind.
So listeners, it's such a thrill to be able to say that for this episode, we had the wonderful James Phoon join us. Veg and I sat down with James and he was so generous with his time and his thoughts. And we're really grateful that he was able to join us. And we hope you love the interview. And we'll see you, Lecky. You'll be with me at the end for a little outro. But until then, enjoy. Hello everyone, Obs and Veg here, and we are joined today by a very special guest. It is our very own Harry Dankworth. It's James Phoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh my God, my pleasure.
Welcome. It's really lovely to have you on the pod. And to introduce ourselves formally to you a bit, we created this podcast last year as a way to sort of bring together fans from across the world in celebration of Bridgerton while we waited for season 3.
Which, you know, was a long old wait.
It really was. You're telling me.
Okay.
My God.
Well, on the pod, we like to not just talk about the love story and the characters, but we also really like to dig deeper into the creative processes that have created the world of the show. So that's on screen and off screen. So we're just grateful to have you here today, hopefully to chat a bit more about your time on the show, how you created the character, but then also what else you've been up to this year.
Great.
Yeah, it's been a big old year for you.
Yeah. Because like things take so long to come out. And so you've sort of like done things in the past. And for some reason this year, everything was released at once. So yeah, it was a very busy year.
Yeah, it must have been sort of waiting for your kind of all your moments to come at once.
Yeah.
Because you had season 3 of Bridgerton, obviously, what most of our listeners might know you for, and then you reprised your role of Hamish in season 2 of Wreck.
I did, yes.
And also, as we both know, you appeared on stage as Bramwell Brontë in the really good play Underdog at the National. So what's it been like this kind of year? How's it been for you?
It's been so busy, and especially going back to theatre, because I last did theatre immediately after the pandemic. I did a very small show at Above the Stag Theatre, which was the UK's only full-time queer theatre. It's currently on a bit of a hiatus. I don't know quite what's happening to it, but that was the last show that I did, was in 2021 theatre-wise. So going back to the theatre this year, 3 years later, it was just like returning home really, and using all of those skills that was like the beginning of my career was all theatre. Yeah. So it was nice to just go back to that, and especially working at the National is somewhere that I've never worked before, but had always dreamed of working. And this play was just one that was so witty and fun and really great team around it. So yeah, it was such a joy.
Yeah, well, we can't wait to ask you a bit more about that role later on.
Because we loved it.
But yeah, you've taken on some really fascinating roles in your time in the industry. What was it that sort of originally drew you to pursue a career in performing arts? Like, what was that first spark for you?
I think I always just loved the things that I was watching. Like, I loved movies, I loved TV shows and that escapism. And I think just naturally, like, I was always drawing the things that I was watching, or like, you know, creating my own fantasy storylines, or like in the garden pretending I had superpowers. Like, I was always basically doing the job for myself and acting things out for myself. And it was just something that I knew that I loved and was passionate about. It took a really long time to figure out how to do the job in terms of like logistically, like, how do you get an agent? How do you get an audition? How do you get anyone to employ you? Like, who even are the people that run the auditions? Who are the people that write this? Like, I knew nothing. So it was a long, slow process of knowing that I loved storytelling and loved films and loved TV shows, to actually figuring out like, how do you do that?
And then making it possible.
Yeah.
And speaking of the roles you've played, as you say, you've portrayed characters across a variety of mediums. So you've been on our screens in Rec and Bridgerton, but you've had so much experience on the stage. You've played Scorpius Malfoy, Peter Pan, of course, Branwell as well. But then you also have a really rich body of work as a voice actor in things like video games. So how does that process differ when you're creating and finding those characters, but across the different mediums? Stage, screen, voice?
God, they're so different. Just because like the logistical processes of voice work versus TV versus theatre, the processes are just different in terms of the whole company. So, you know, you're like instant responses to a character are the same. You know, it's the same storytelling skills, and you have the same thought processes about what do they sound like, where have they been, how do they grow up, like all of those things are the same. But in terms of like theatre, usually, you know, quite far in advance when you're going to do a show. I think like theatre is quite well organised. So you normally have a script quite far in advance, and then you're obviously rehearsing alongside the whole company. And so I think you're sort of building your character alongside everyone else and alongside the rest of the show, more so when you're doing theatre versus when you're doing TV. Things quite often are really last minute and are ever changing, and you know the scripts are very rarely completely locked, so anything can change at any time. So even though your core character that you've personally worked on is going to probably be the same, there will be little details about them that change throughout the shoot, or things about their relationship that maybe you didn't know or hadn't been decided on when you first started filming compared to when you finished filming. So you're sort of discovering things as you're going along, I think, with filming. And I guess voice work is quite similar. Usually for voice work, for video games, you don't even see a script most of the time before you go into the booth. And so you're sight reading it, and you're working with, if you're lucky, with the writer and the director and the producers. And so they'll all be chipping in to give you the background information, and they'll be saying like, oh, your character comes from this place and they know that bit of information because of so-and-so. And they're sort of giving you the information live as you're saying it. So it's very spontaneous doing video game voice work.
Do you have a first love or one that you just love to return to, a medium?
All of them, honestly, all of them.
Sounds so varied, yeah.
Yeah, I love creating, and I love the different processes. And like I say, they're so different. And I think that variety, as a creative person, I think most people sort of like who are creative sort of struggle to stay in one place all the time. So I think the more variety, the better.
Yeah, it keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
So I guess we should turn to Bridgerton. Your casting was first announced formally all the way back in July 2022. So what was the kind of audition process like for Harry?
The audition process was, first of all, it's super secretive because you get a breakdown from your agent when you get an audition, and they say, you know, this is the name of the show and this is the brief outline of the character and these are the scripts that we have available and whatever. And that information like varies from project to project. And on this, it was so limited. So it had a code name for the TV show, and then all the other characters in the scenes that I was sent to tape for all had made up names as well. But I could see that it was produced by Shonda Rhimes and Betsy Beers and all of that team. And I could tell from the writing, like the style of show it was. So I was like, I'm pretty sure this is Bridgerton. And if it is...
Someone mentions like a carriage and you're like,
Yeah, exactly. No, there was a ballroom scene, the full moon ball, the bonbons scene. That was one of my audition scenes. And I was like, this has to be Bridgerton. So I taped for it and I sent it off. And it was a really fast process, actually. You can never tell with these things if it's just going to be like a one take and you get the job, or if it's going to be like months and months of meetings and all this stuff. But this one was a really quick one, which was really nice, because it does get stressful the longer a process goes on, and you're sort of keeping the potential of maybe doing that job or maybe doing something else, and that stuff's quite tiring. So I was lucky that this was a very swift process.
Yeah, well, we were so happy to kind of meet your character. And one of the things that we admire so much about Bridgerton is not just the scale of the production, but the level of detail in like each aspect of it by the creative teams. And one of those is costuming, which I talk about quite a lot on this podcast. That's just one of the ways that the world and the characters are brought to life. So how did Dankworth's costuming and styling choices help you to sort of create and find what his character was during that process?
Well, interestingly, when I went to my first costume fitting, I was working with Dougie, who's one of the designers on the show, Dougie Hawkes, and he sort of showed me the mood board and sort of asked my opinions on it. And at that point, I'd only had my audition sides and the audition information. So I really didn't know much about the character. I basically knew, the tagline that they put out when Harry Dankworth was first announced, and it said, he's pretty, but not very bright.
Yeah.
I knew basically that and not much more. I didn't even know who I was married to. I knew I had a wife, but I didn't know who I was married to. So he asked my opinion, and I was like, if I'm honest, you know more about this character than me, so you're going to have to tell me if this works for the character. Because at this point, I don't know. So I first found out that Bessie, who plays Prudence, was my wife in the show from Dougie during that costume fitting. But I will say there's more collaboration than I'd expected, because it's such a mammoth, high budget, super production. So I thought that maybe decisions would be very far off from us as actors, and we just sort of have to do what we're told. But like straight away in that first meeting, Dougie mentioned the little watch fobs that all the male characters have, and he was like, you can have little trinkets on it, and these are some of the things that the other boys have. What do you think Harry might have? And obviously at that point I didn't know, and he was like, go away and have a think, and then like drop me a text or whatever, and we can talk about it. And so I went home and I had this idea, because my Malaysian grandma, half my family's Malaysian Chinese, and when I was born, she gave me this gold coin, which is like it's a very common gift. It's about like good fortune and good luck. This gold coin necklace, and so I sent a photo of that to Dougie, and I was like, this is a thing that Malaysian Chinese people do. If there's something like this that we could put on the watch fob, that would be really cool. And he went away, looked at loads of options, and came back with this little pendant that has a fool symbol on, which is like blessing and good luck. So like totally listened to that idea and was like really on board with incorporating my Chinese heritage into the character, and in a subtle way that most people won't notice. But like you say, people look at these little details, and maybe on like the second time or the third time watching, like these little things pick out, and it all adds to this huge immersive world that these amazing designers are creating.
That's such a great story.
Oh, our co-host Lecky is going to be thrilled, because she has been dying to know the story of that fob watch. And I think that's what's so brilliant about the show, is it sort of builds out around the character instead of kind of confining a character into a box.
Yeah. And it's the same thing, like in terms of the writing. My friend James Bradwell, who plays one of the lords in the show, the one whose horse died, Basilio.
Rest in peace.
His character was originally named something else. And he spoke to Jess Brownell, and he was like, I wondered if we could think of like a Filipino name, because he's Filipino. And she was like, absolutely, send me some options and we'll figure out a different name. And they did that. They changed his character's name and made it just feel more inclusive for him and for obviously Filipino people watching it. So it's an amazing team that's like really open to collaboration on it.
Yeah, that's so great. And yeah, they've announced the Sophies. The new character of Sophie, her surname has changed to better match her heritage as well.
Yeah, and those small details are really important, I think.
Yeah.
Yerin spoke about that recently, actually. She said how it made her feel as if she could be the character rather than having the character placed onto her. And she talked about how important it was for Jess to offer that for her.
Yeah, and Jess is so great at that. Like, I don't know how she does it. She's running this huge ship. She's the showrunner. So she is sort of like the person at the center of everything, every decision that's being made. So, you know, she's spinning 1,000 plates at all times. But if you drop her a message, like, she will listen and she'll take your thoughts into account and try and incorporate them. So I don't know how she does it.
Amazing. Kudos to her, absolutely, because what a world the show's been able to create. And it's a world that we've known for quite a few years, but obviously Dankworth joins us in episode 1. And what's interesting with Dankworth arriving is that we learn that he married Prudence in the off-season. And so we see the two of them go on this huge journey throughout the season where I think Dankworth is this really romantic, open character, and it takes her a while to find her own footing in that relationship. So how did you and Bessie work together to establish what had come before episode 1 and then shape your journey throughout the whole season?
I think, in a way, what was quite interesting about this relationship is that not a lot had come before. I think it's very fresh when we meet them, and they didn't really know each other beforehand. They've been put together by their families. And so when we first meet them, like, they don't know each other and it is awkward. So that was sort of like the main bit of the discussion, was deciding that not much had happened between them and just finding ways to like balance the two different characters. And I think we had a lot of fun, especially at the beginning, playing with like me being quite touchy-feely and like put my arms around her, or like there were lots of takes which I don't know if any of them made it into the show, but where I like bop her on the nose and stuff like that, which just for Prudence is uncomfortable and horrible.
Yeah.
And, you know, as two people who we didn't know each other very well at that point, that's also quite strange as an actor. Like, you normally have to like fake the intimacy with someone, and like if someone's bopping you on the nose, you have to pretend that that's really normal with a stranger. But in this job, it was okay to be like, oh, that's really weird, I don't know you.
And sort of talking about Dankworth as an affectionate character, he's comedic, but he's also so genuine and loving. And I think in season 3, particularly in part 1, a huge part of Colin's character arc sees him really grappling with the expectations placed upon him by the world around him and the behaviours that the Regency era expects from him as an eligible male, especially in terms of what he sees as this cavalier disregard for love. And as a character, you see that he places this really high value on emotional intimacy, not just the physical intimacy in isolation. And I think we see that cavalier attitude represented by the Lord friends. But then with Dankworth and Finch, they both represent a different kind of Regency man. They're both devoted husbands. They're happy to sit back and let their wives take the lead, which feels quite radical in a show like this, in a period like this. They're openly affectionate and they're sensitive, and they're not bothered about how others view them and the expectations they feel. It's about their own authenticity. So what was it like to portray that kind of Regency man?
I mean, like you say, it was really nice to bring a different type of male representation to the show, because like, say, the other characters are very, and, you know, understandably because of this whole society that they're in, but are very preoccupied with the way that they're perceived. And yeah, it just felt quite nice to be someone who was not consumed by that stuff, especially as I was filming Rec on BBC at the same time, like either side of Bridgerton. And my character in that, Hamish, is someone who deeply cares what other people think about him, and can be quite spiteful and aggressive and sort of lashes out because he is sort of desperate for his own protection of his own status and stuff like that. So to then play Dankworth in between, someone who is really unfazed by what's going on around him, was really, really quite nice, actually. And I quite like the fact that it's not even really a choice of Dankworth's to be like that. He is so in his own world and so innocent and so oblivious that, like, it doesn't even cross his mind that people might have a problem with him. There's like small moments where like he might catch on that someone said something a little bit offensive, but I think he very quickly forgets that thing has been said.
And that's such a liberating aspect and quality to have, choosing to be yourself and to not have that dampened by outside perceptions or expectations.
Totally.
And that was such kind of a message and theme of the season as well, which is another thing I love about Bridgerton, is how all the little, you know, the themes feed all the way through to all the little subplots and characters.
Yeah, and we definitely felt that with the Featheringtons this season, especially with the Dankworth-Finch Ball at the end, just throwing this ball, which up until this point you would have thought it'd be terrible, it'd be a total failure, no one would turn up, everyone would be rolling their eyes at them. But they throw this incredible ball, but also it's a weird ball and it's garish and it's like entirely themselves. And they make it a success and they dance and they have fun and they claim this space in the ton as themselves. They haven't changed to fit in everyone else's box. They're like, oh no, we're here and actually life can be quite good as we are.
Yeah, and they fit right in with the Featheringtons as well. And honestly, these characters, your character and Finch, are fan favourites.
Oh.
And we love catching all the interactions in the scenes when you sort of see each other in the background, look at each other, and you brought so much light and humour to the show. So what was it like to kind of work with Lorne to find these moments?
Oh, he's so great. He's so much fun. He's someone who, like, as a person and as an actor is just like deeply interested in everyone and everything. Like, you have the best conversations with him because, like, no matter what you're talking about, he's like super interested and will ask 1,000 questions about it. So yeah, like playing with him, especially as, you know, a lot of the time we're in scenes where we're written into the scenes, but we don't necessarily say a lot. So you sort of turn up and you're like, okay, what do our characters do in this situation? Like, do they chip in? How do they fit in? And yeah, having Lorne to play with, who had been around on the show for however many years before me, sort of mirrored the relationship that Dankworth and Finch have in terms of like Finch being part of the family for way longer than Dankworth and sort of like showing him the ropes. So yeah, I think we were always just sort of looking out for little moments for ourselves. And there's a bit in, I think it's in episode 1 at the garden party, and character names and real people names. I'm like, Polly,
you're all out. You're all good.
Talking to Prudence and Philippa about babies, and Dankworth like sort of wants to join in, and then Finch like pulls him back and tells him to like leave the women to it. Oh, yeah. That thing, it's like, it's not in the script that Finch stops him, and it's barely even in the scene. It's like you just sort of catch it a tiny bit as the scene cuts away. But like those little things that Lorne brought to the role and like sort of encouraged me to do, like I said at the beginning, I was like, this is a mammoth show. I don't know how much freedom I have. Yeah, he was very key in sort of showing me like, yeah, we can sort of do what we want and offer ideas and they'll be like open to it.
Which again, as you were saying with Bessie, that dynamic working because it was so new between the two of you as actors, that works really well because Finch was already part of the family and he's sort of showing Dankworth the ropes, which mirrors that really beautifully.
Yeah, totally.
And you mentioned babies. Ooh. So we do have to ask, it's a bit of a fun question. Do you have a sort of headcanon name for the Dankworth baby? Because we hear Philomena, but... We
actually do have a name, which is not an official name. So, you know, Jess, Shonda, don't kill me for saying this, but it's not real. Mine and Bessie's name for the baby. We like that she's called Petunia and that we call her Petty, and we don't realise that like Petty is not a nice name.
Petty! That is incredible. Thank you for that. Because this is a thing, as you might have encountered with fans of the show, including ourselves, we're so interested in these tiny, tiny details. So everything that the actors, but also the production team put into it is really picked on and really loved. And I think it helps create such life in every corner of the screen, really. Mm-hmm. Do you have any particular favourite memories from the filming process? It was quite a while ago, but... So
many. I mean, there's just so many points because I was a fan beforehand. So there were so many points where you just be like, oh, wow, this is like actually Bridgerton. Because there's like weird moments where, you know, you're there to do a job and you have to, you know, you've been up since crazy early in the morning and you're uncomfortable in this costume or whatever. So there's like moments where it is a job. And then there's other moments when you're like, oh my God, this is actually Bridgerton. This is crazy. So yeah, like day one, my first day, I was filming in the Featherington drawing room, which was like, wow, like I've seen this set on TV so many times. It's so cool to be here. Learning the dance for episode 8, like getting to do one of those stylized Bridgerton dances in a ball. So many.
And there's been so much outpouring of love from fans of the show for your character. And even before Dankworth appeared on the screen, none more so than our co-host Beans, who was a big fan of Prudank right from the first casting announcement. She seemed to have somehow guessed what your character's role would be pretty early on, but we were thrilled to have it confirmed.
I know, it's sleuths. Like, if I ever go missing, I need fandoms to try and find me, because I swear, like, the detective skills are insane.
That's a kind way to put it.
We'll get beans on the case. You'll be fine. Yeah, she read that character description that was announced in the Deadline article and instantly she just went, Prudank. And we're like, what? And she was like, he's marrying Prudence. I'm like, where did you read this? And so she has just been the most ardent believer and adorer of Prudank.
Yeah. You know what though? It's terrifying as an actor because you're always like tied by these NDAs and like you're not allowed to say that you're doing a job or like whatever. And then like when people guess the right thing, you're like, oh my God, I hope production doesn't think that I've leaked this. Like I haven't told anyone. Like I swear I've not told anyone. Like I get panicky about like being fired, even though I know I'm innocent. I'm like, they're going to think it's me.
And how does it feel to portray a character that has had that great reaction from fans?
I mean, I am such a super fan by nature of things. Like I said, like I love TV, I love cinema. So to be part of a project that is having that effect on other people is like the dream. Like I know what it feels like when you're really excited by a character and by a storyline and by a world that's been created and that you want to like make funny memes and stuff like that about them. Like, yeah, it's like the dream. That's why I want to be an actor, is to make people feel the way that I feel when I'm watching the things that I love. So yeah, it doesn't get better than that.
And to know that your storytelling is resonating with so many people, it's kind of the aim of the game, really.
Yeah, totally.
But turning from Harry Dankworth, this year you also played the role of Branwell Brontë in the National's production of Underdog, the other Brontë. As I say, we both came to see the production. We absolutely loved it. It was hilarious. The set was beautiful. It was poignant. And in some ways, Branwell feels worlds away from a character like Harry Dankworth, but then I think there are such interesting comparisons between the two. I think in some ways they both defy the expectations of their eras, and I think there's something to be said about how family-driven both of those stories are. Of the Featheringtons, although they're sort of very different from the Brontes, is this core family, sibling bonds. So what was it like to go from portraying Dankworth to stepping into Branwell?
Well, firstly, it was so bizarre because they're both set in a very similar time period. They're both in the 1800s. And up until very recently, I was like, someone that looks like me is never in period pieces that are set in the 1800s. So really, up until Bridgerton came out, like season 1 of Bridgerton, I was never expecting to ever be in anything set in the 1800s. So first off, I was like, how has this happened back to back? And like these shows are coming out at, well, that show and my theatre show are going to be out at the same time. Like it was a weird sort of coincidence. But yeah, you're right. They're both people who don't fit into what society expects of them. They're both slightly strange and slight outsiders. But like I said about Harry, he's someone who is blissfully unaware of being an outsider and the stigma and all of that stuff. Whereas Branwell is someone who really felt that very deeply and felt a lot of pressure to provide for his family and pressure to be a success and pressure to support his sisters to like very detrimental effects, and was very weighed down by it and had to turn to substances to like help him get through this. So yeah, polar different reactions to similar problems, I think.
And I have a bit of a connection to the Brontes because I was born in West Yorkshire, not far from where they're from, and I studied them a lot at university. And these people and their stories have been such a huge part of my life, but my relationship to literature and storytelling. And I think Branwell in particular has always been this really fascinating person because he's not just a character, he is this real human who I think has so often been remembered for only the tragedies of his life. But as you'll know, he was also an incredible creative, a writer, a poet, a painter and a brother. So what was the research process like for Underdog and researching the Bronte story and the sibling dynamics? And was there an aspect of Branwell's story and character that you really wanted to bring to life on stage and represent for him?
It was such an interesting research process because I didn't know much about Branwell before this. I didn't really know much about any of the Brontes really before this project. So it was a really great opportunity to like sink my teeth into it and try and pull out all of these facts, especially about Branwell, because for the three sisters, there's a lot more information readily available and sort of different arguments about what the truth is and blah, blah, blah. Whereas with Branwell, you really have to mine for that information. And you're totally right about him being more than those addictions that he struggled with. He was always working on something, and when something didn't work out, he would try something else, and he was always writing to people and getting a new career and trying to pursue something else. Like, he had a lot of determination and a lot of stamina, and he was so driven. But I think the thing that he lacked was knowing how to direct that passion and that drive and make a success of it and navigate the constraints of society. And so he sort of never quite hits the mark, but he always kept trying. And it's quite tragic, actually, some of the letters that he wrote, and you see him writing to the same people over and over again. There's a magazine called Blackwoods Magazine, which was out at the time, and he was desperate to be a writer for them. And you see over the years the letters getting just more and more unhinged and desperate and aggressive, and you read them and you're like, of course they're not replying to you, because you seem absolutely insane. Like, no one will want to work with you, but you can also understand that pain and that passion and that desire, and like, he can't let go of his need to succeed.
And in recent years, up in Haworth, where the Brontes are from, they celebrated in turn all of the siblings' 200th anniversaries of their birth. And up there, the celebrations were, as you'd imagine, really, really big for all of them. However, I remember at the time that when Branwell's came around, there was even a discussion as to whether they were going to commemorate that at all, which feels, for someone who is so connected to Branwell, that kind of feels sacrilegious almost. But he is a character who, I mean, we've seen the painting where he literally tried to remove himself from the fabric of the story. And we see how he has been disregarded or cast aside throughout scholarship or throughout the past 200 years. So I think seeing him brought to life on stage the way that you brought him to life, bringing him back into that family, was a really powerful moment. And you found humour in it as well. And you found light within a celebration of family. And it had that competitive edge with all the siblings, but it was a very soulful story, I think.
It was one of those roles that it was written by Sarah Gordon, who is an amazing playwright. And she did a really great job of writing someone who was angry and passionate and upset and struggling, but it does have a lot of humor in it, and you can understand those sibling dynamics and those family dynamics within the story, and there's a lot of humor in there. And actually, it's interesting what you say about that 200th anniversary thing, because we actually did a trip up to Haworth and went to the parsonage at the beginning of rehearsals. And in the parsonage, in the shop, they were selling little pin badges that said like Team Emily, Team Anne, Team Charlotte, Team Branwell. And all of the girls' pin badges were £1, and Branwell's pin badges were 50p. And
there were so many of them.
There's so many of them. No one wanted a Branwell badge, but I bought one.
Right, listeners, head on up. There's a great deal waiting for you in the Yorkshire Moors, is it? Dales? Sorry.
Moors, please. Show some respect.
Sorry, I've been there. I had the Yorkshire puddings.
She's from the south, but what can you do? After such an incredible year, obviously you filmed Bridgerton a couple of years ago, but this year was a real celebration of that achievement and that show. And of course, Rec as well, and your voice work, and then a character like Branwell. What's the next kind of role that you'd really like to step into, be that on screen, stage, audio, any medium? What would catch your eye next?
God, there are so many. Like I say, I get like very passionate about things, but also I don't like to be tied down to anything for too long. So there's like so many different things that I would love to do. I think I'm very interested in the change of East Asian representation in the last probably like 5-7 years since Crazy Rich Asians came out, basically. And when that movie came out and did really well, it basically proved that East Asians don't have to just do kung fu. We can also be human beings that do everything else that all other human beings do. So yeah, I'm excited by the fact that there are male East Asian love interests now, which feels like that wasn't a thing before. I mean, I've made no secret of the fact that I'm a X-Men super fan. I would do anything to be an X-Man, anywhere, in the animated show, in a live MCU thing, anywhere.
X-Men the musical.
Yeah, we'll put it out into the universe. Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, there's like thousands of things that I want to do, really. Yeah.
And I think in terms of representation, the show has opened the door in so many ways, but I think it's also an important moment to realise that you've been such a huge part of that for everyone else who's watched you on screen, on stage. So that will have made an incredible impact and a lasting impact, because as you say, it takes these shows and productions that opens door and it creates that pathway for people. So your work in the industry is already doing that.
Thank you. I hope it's having some little impact somewhere.
Absolutely, because that's what storytelling is.
Yeah.
The human experience, seeing yourself, your story, your life, your world represented, as the show can do and has done, and so excitingly will do for season 4. I know that so many people are really excited to see that love story, but to know that that representation can go across the world, across mediums, is so powerful. So thank you for your storytelling, really, with Harry and then with Branwell, of course. So we're really excited to see what you get up to next.
Yeah. Me too.
And finally, and thanks so much for your time. It's been amazing. So you probably get this question a lot, but just for those listening who have got a wide kind of range of interests around different parts of the creative arts, what's kind of the most important piece of advice you've received or would like to share for someone who wants to pursue a life in the creative arts?
I think one of my mantras that I hold on to and have to like remind myself and come back to all the time is something that RuPaul says, which is, what other people think about you is none of your business. Yeah, I think that's a really core one for me to hold on to, especially as a performer, when it feels like a big part of your job, or it can feel like a big part of your job, is satisfying other people and pleasing other people and making sure people like your work and like the way you look and all that kind of stuff. It's sort of really important to hold on to like why you're doing the job, why it's important to you, and to sort of have that as a guiding light. And the other opinions, that's about them. That's about their personal experience. That's about their hang-ups, their struggles. And yeah, it's none of your business.
I think that's one of the most powerful tools that you can have in storytelling, is to be truthful to the story above all else. And I think that's how you find your way forward.
Yeah, totally.
Well, James, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my God, my pleasure.
It's been really lovely. We've been such huge fans of your work, especially, seeing you on stage and on screen, seeing your range. Also, can we just give a shout out to that ensemble track in Underdog? Incredible.
Oh, yeah.
So fun.
That was brilliant to see.
And for sitting down dead for a good 20 minutes, was it, that you were sat?
Yeah, that got achy. Sitting on the side of the stage for 20 minutes.
When I was at primary school, I played Helena in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I just had to spend so much time just sleeping under a bench whilst I was in my potion. So I feel you there.
Yeah.
So huge kudos to that. And for our listeners who are interested in catching Underdog, it's on National Theatre at Home.
It is, yeah. I think worldwide.
I think it is. So everyone go and watch it. You will absolutely love it. It is kind of a play on the era as well, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a contemporary twist, and the characters, Charlotte breaks the fourth wall and sort of is telling her story as if she's saying it today about 1850. So yeah, there's a contemporary twist to it.
Go watch, you'll love it. And James, we can keep up with you on Instagram and TikTok, I believe.
Yes, I do have a TikTok account, but it's very dead.
Just post your self-tape bloopers. That's what I always see from actors.
Yeah.
Whack your bloopers up, they'll love it.
Also, I started teasing today that I have these new journals by James, because I've been creating journals for myself for years, because life is crazy and confusing, and especially when you're self-employed and you don't have like a 9-to-5 routine, it can feel a bit like you're lost in the wind sometimes. So I sort of like started creating these wellness journals years ago for myself as like an anchor point and to set my goals and whatever. And people have been saying for years, can they buy some? And I've said no, up until now. And I've like made a bunch that are going to be for sale. So you can also find me on Journals by James on Instagram and TikTok as well.
I have seen your bullet journals. They're so therapeutic.
Oh, thank you.
I've seen you go through them, and yeah, absolutely. I need some organisation in my life. I need some calm in my life. So
get a Journals by James.
Yeah.
We will absolutely link all of that and share all of that. And we'll also link where we can catch you on Rec, which is on BBC iPlayer, I believe.
Yes, it's a very fun, queer horror show. If you're into that kind of thing, it's so much fun. It's written by a gay man, Ryan J. Brown, and most of the characters, or at least half the characters, are from the queer community. And so there's sort of like a broad spectrum of queer people. Sort of like what I was saying about East Asian characters not all having to be kung fu. It's a show where the queer people don't all have to be like the campy best friend. They're just real people, and they're very diverse, and they're all different from one another. So yeah, I recommend it. It's fun.
Amazing.
And it was my first TV show and just the best team. Love that team so much.
Amazing. Well, everyone, go catch James on all those places. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been just an absolute delight. And thank you on behalf of everyone. Thank you for bringing Dankworth into our lives.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been really fun.
Lecky, welcome back. Listeners, I hope you absolutely loved hearing from James there. I think it's really special that we've just been starting our season 3 rewatch, and it was so lovely to hear from James and his experience on joining the show, because what I love about episode 1 in particular, Lecky, is we've spoke about it in our rewatch. It's this real meeting point of the past and the future. We spend time with old characters, but then we get these new characters and we meet them and spend time with them.
Yeah, and I liked how he said his character is finding his footing within the Featherington household and in his marriage, kind of like Penelope is finding her footing as she embarks on her search to find a husband. And, you know, all of the characters really are trying to find their footing in this new season that they found themselves in.
Yeah, change is definitely in the air and is the theme of the episode. So, Lecky, you've had a little listen.
Yes.
What struck me when speaking to James, amongst many things, was, like you say, his journey really matches Harry's in the season, where he's entering this new world. And it was amazing to hear about how he developed that backstory with Bessie, or sort of lack of backstory almost.
Yeah.
And then how he worked with Lorne, obviously the wonderful Albion Finch, to create that dynamic between the brothers-in-law and the family dynamic of the Featheringtons.
I have to say, it would have been so funny to see him booping Prudence on the nose or bopping her on the nose as he suggested, please release the footage of him bopping her on the nose, because I bet that's hilarious. But there is a very kind of similar moment in 301 as they're exiting the Livingston garden party and they're trying to usher their wives into the carriage. Dankworth kind of reaches out for Prudence and she like brushes him off. So we see glimmers of that. But I would have really loved to see the footage of him bopping her on the nose.
What I love with Harry's, and it's the same with Finch, is they enrich the scene so much just by being there and their presence. And they had such like a physical comedy.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
And they don't even have to say a word sometimes.
I know.
You were talking earlier about one of your favourite Dankworth moments.
Yeah, and I rewatched this again just last night because I was getting some images for our collages. And the scene at the wedding reception, the first shot is of the wedding cake, and then the camera pans over and you see Dankworth and Finch just kind of staring up at the cake in awe, just silently, and then it just kind of drifts over towards the rest of the characters in the scene. It's hilarious.
I think it was really interesting to hear James's thoughts on these two men, so with Finch and Dankworth, how they offer comedic relief and create this weird but beautiful family, but also they offer, without even trying to, this natural contrast, this freedom for these two men in the Regency world who, just by being who they are and loving in the way they do, are offering this radical rejection, incidentally, of the traditional masculinity of the time, which Colin grapples with a lot.
Yeah, there's two great interviews with Lorne and with James, which we will link in our show notes, where they talk about this, where Lorne describes it as positive masculinity, how they kind of contrast with the rest of the men in the ton. And James, in one of the interviews, I believe he said that they kind of didn't mind existing within a matriarchal family. They don't mind not being the decision maker. He just loved supporting his wife and trying to make Prudence happy at all costs. He had no problem being the number 2 in the relationship and was just happy to be with her, basically. And I just thought they were just such great characters this season.
They provided light and yet still added to those themes.
Yeah, and they're just also like really great. It's really nice to see romantic love interests who are just genuinely great guys.
Yeah.
Who love their wives, who love their spouses, who don't have a huge ego, and, you know, they're just happy to be in love.
And to be themselves. And that culminates, as James said, in that celebration of the family at the end of 308. And speaking of 308, Lecky, the breaking news, we have unofficial, but a name for at least one of the unnamed babies.
I think this is absolutely hysterical. I was absolutely astonished by Petty Dankworth and how perfect that name is for their baby. Amazing. A+, Bessie and James. Thank you for that.
And such a lovely way to honour Great Aunt Petunia as well.
Yeah, who she didn't even like, by the way. I find this so funny.
So she came full circle in the end.
Yeah, amazing. I love that so much.
So the baby, Lord Featherington, jury's still out, but
Yeah, we have 2 of the 3 have names.
that's not bad going, is it?
Yeah.
Philomena and Petty.
Yeah.
And then something else that was so lovely to hear about, which I think we've always known about the show, but James really highlighted this, is how collaborative the show is. It's massive and the scale of the production is phenomenal. And yet the way that the creative teams work so closely with the cast and with other teams to make sure that the cast feel heard and feel represented and feel like they can add to their character. James said that he hadn't even known anything about Dankworth really during the audition process, but then with his costuming, it was those details where Dougie Hawkes brought him into the conversation, and I'm sure this works across so many of the teams, and really helped James craft Dankworth as well.
Inhabit that character. Yeah.
Yaron has also commented on that, about how these tiny details, like a costume, might be something that you might not see until many rewatches, but are so instrumental and so powerful in helping cast feel represented and then portray these characters. And I just loved hearing about that.
Yeah, I was particularly interested about hearing about his watch fob, as you knew I would be. But he said that they gave him the little trinket with the foo symbol on it. But I was always also very curious about the pig trinket on his watch fob. And I thought that maybe that might be like a family symbol for the Dankworths, because he and Bessie, she used the butterfly emoji and he used the pig emoji often while promoting the show for season 3. So I thought that maybe that was a family symbol. So we asked James about this, and he said that he does like to think that the pig is a family symbol for the Dankworths, that perhaps they originally came from a farming background many years ago and rose in the ranks. And I thought that was very funny because it kind of fits in with the idea that he married up, as we're told. I like that every family has like an animal symbol, and now I'm very curious to know what the other families are, but we've got the bees, we've got the butterflies, and now we've got the little pig family, and it's just so cute.
Oh my god, I'm eating a Percy pig.
I don't know what a Percy pig is.
Oh, you've never lived, Lecky. Sorry.
Oh, cute, but kind of sad. I'd be kind of sad eating a little cute little pig, though.
No, this is a place that make Colin the caterpillars, so we just eat all kind of animals from there.
Yeah, but a caterpillar isn't as cute as a little pig. Anyway,
Sorry. The pig and the butterfly.
Yeah.
What a love story.
yeah, with their daughter Petty.
So with their daughter Petty. So thank you so much, James, for answering our last minute question. There you go, Lecky. One of the season 3 mysteries has been solved.
So pleased. Thank you so much, James.
Well, Lecky, it was so nice to hear from James, and we hope that you all enjoyed it as well. And we spoke with James a couple of weeks ago before it had been announced that he will be starring alongside Sigourney Weaver in Jamie Lloyd's new production of The Tempest over at Theatre Royal Drury Lane. This is one of the most highly anticipated plays in the West End, so this is huge news, so exciting. He's going to absolutely crush it. And then also his journals by James.
Yes.
You can follow him on Instagram. You can go get your hands on your journals as we speak.
Yes, Obs, you already bought your journal, correct?
Yes, I did. It arrived. I mean, we're not a visual podcast.
Oh, it looks cute.
I mean, we'll share pictures.
It makes a satisfying noise, the hardback cover.
It is so good.
You know what? If you're not feeling in the mood to fill it out, you could just tap your fingers on there.
You could tap it.
Yeah, journal ASMR.
I absolutely love it because I've always been really interested in bullet journaling. But you know very well, Lecky, I have really limited creative skill. I tell you this all the time.
I was going to say, I find this also appealing because I have no artistic ability either.
You do.
Well, I can't draw. Literally, the only thing, I'm not joking, listeners, the only thing I can draw is cheese. I'm not kidding.
What?
I can't even draw a circle.
What do you mean cheese?
Like a slice of Swiss cheese. That's the only thing I can draw.
I mean, Finch would love that, to be fair. That's just not what I thought you were going to say.
I'm not kidding. That's the only thing I can draw.
The only thing I can draw is those little cartoons that I sometimes do with Pen and Colin.
Yeah, you have better drawing skills than I do.
But I've always wanted bullet journals because I do love journaling, but I'm just terrible at it. And look how beautiful it is, Lecky.
They're so pretty. The aesthetic. It's so beautiful.
And it's almost big enough to be like a photo album because I've got my little Instax printer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to use this all of next year. You can buy it right now. You can get it signed even by James and he'll write a little dedication in the front to you. And basically, what a perfect way to get ready for 2025.
Yeah, be a good holiday gift.
Absolutely. So you can go follow him on Instagram. We'll be sharing it all in our links. And you can also catch him, as I said, in The Tempest in the West End very, very soon.
Are the tickets on sale already?
They are.
Great. We will link that in our show notes so you can go and buy your ticket. And you can keep up with James on Instagram at @JamesPhoon_ and at Journals by James. The Tempest will be running at Theatre Royal Drury Lane from the 7th of December to the 1st of February. You can stream Underdog, the other Brontë on National Theatre at Home, and seasons 1 and 2 of Wreck are both available on BBC iPlayer and Hulu. By the way, this is a super entertaining horror comedy. I very much recommend it. I'm in the middle of season 2 right now. And of course, Bridgerton season 3 is streaming over on Netflix, so please go forth and celebrate James Phoon.
So, dear listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. What a way to kick things off for our season 3 rewatch. Speaking of which, we are hard at work on our 302 rewatch. This is a big one for Polin.
Yes.
So it's going to take us a minute or two, but stick with us and it will be coming at some point in the coming weeks, Lecky. That old chestnut.
Yeah, let's just embrace that term. It'll appear, listeners, at some point in the coming weeks.
But until then, Lecky, where can everyone find us?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok. And if you like to listen to your no, what? I was going to say if you like to listen to your collages.
If you like to listen to your collages.
And if you like to listen to your podcast, we are available on all podcast platforms. And if you like to listen to your podcast and watch Beans' lovely collages, we are also on YouTube.
And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can join us over on Patreon at What a Barb Pod, where we'll have an episode discussion post celebrating all things Harry Dankworth, as well as many other posts. We're currently over there celebrating episode 1 still. We'll have outfit games, little ranking posts, and even some baking with Beans.
Also celebrating pizza.
Yeah, if you want to bake with the Countess, come on over.
Yeah.
But speaking of our lovely Beans, Beans, my darling, wherever you may be, do us the honour and sing us out.
Das violin. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.